Legislative coverage on SDPB is supported by the South Dakota Bar Foundation, SDN Communications, Missouri River Energy Services, and your membership in the Friends of SDPB. Thank you.
From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder.
Senate Health and Human Services Committee meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody that's on the internet. Welcome, obviously, to all of you in the room. And now this year we're streaming the broadcast live, so welcome to anybody that might be watching today, too. So, quick reminder, please have your cell phones silenced so that we don't disrupt the meeting. And we're going to have a tight agenda today, so we'll go ahead and start with asking the Secretary to call the roll.
Senator Grove.
Here.
Gary.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Boyd.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Benson.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Yeah, thank you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Senator Davis moves to approve minutes, seconded by Senator Reed. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Good, thank you. Minutes are approved. So I want to remind everybody, if you plan to testify with a new process, you sign up over here. You can use the QR code on your phone, or you can sign up on the pad. And then, of course, lobbyists, please have your proper credentials and identify who you're lobbying for or testifying for. Individuals, when you come to the microphone, please push the button, make sure it's green, and then introduce yourself and begin your testimony. And as I said, we have a fairly tight, we're going to try and get through all three of these bills, and I know there's a lot of testimony on all of them. We're going to start with a 12-minute mark on pro and opponent sides, and then see where it goes if we have to do a little more. I would like to really ask that if you're going to testify, please, if you're second or third or whatever, please try not to repeat things that were said before, so we can get as many people in testimony as possible. And if everybody's said everything you want, that you were going to say, you can just come up and say me too, and you will be on the record for that. All online testifiers, we may not get to everybody, but I want everybody to know that it is registered in the log that you were either for or against. So we may not be able to get to all of those. But first, and then I would like to remind everybody, if you have handouts, please give them to the pages to distribute to the front here. So at this point, I'd like to have the pages come forward, introduce yourself, and tell us where you go to school and if you have future plans. We rely on the pages heavily here, so we thank them for their service.
My name is Rachel Stephenson. I go to Arlington High School, and I plan to go to SDSU for elementary education after I graduate.
My name is Lee Decker. I'm a junior at Stevens High School, and I plan on going to law school after I graduate.
All right, then you can join this room. Okay. Thank you. Well, with that, we will just a quick note. I run the committee just a little bit differently. If when you're in questioning, especially if I allow the members up here to have a quick follow-up or two without having to go through the chair, which slows the process down. So it's a little bit more relaxed. If the conversation gets to be too much, then I'll cut it off. But so if you don't have to go to the chair every time, just so we can get things a little bit quicker. So we're going to start with first bill, Senate Bill 181, cause the repeal of medical cannabis chapter upon the federal rescheduling of cannabis. Do we have any proponent testimony? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee. Thank you for a good Wednesday morning. Here to talk to you about Senate Bill 181. So let's dive into that. So Senate Bill, first of all, myself, I'm Senator John Carley, District 29, here to talk to you today about an act to cause the repeal of medical cannabis chapter upon the federal rescheduling of cannabis. So today we look at SB 181. This will move our medical cannabis program over to be in line with the federal rescheduling of cannabis from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3 drug. I know the committee knows what this means, but for the public, cannabis and its derivatives are classified as Schedule 1 controlled substances, meaning their manufacture, possession, and distribution are illegal except for the purposes of federally sanctioned research. In May 2024, the Department of Justice proposed to move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Substances Act. And in December 2025, just a couple months ago, you probably all saw the news that President Trump issued Executive Order 14370, and he directed the Department of Justice to expeditiously complete the rescheduling process. Schedule 3 is less restrictive than Schedule 1 and moves cannabis squarely into the realm of medicines. Since Schedule 1 has no accepted medical use, but Schedule 3 has currently accepted medical use. Previously, the citizens of South Dakota voted with large margin to allow for medical cannabis in the state. This bill does nothing against that. It's a trigger bill. It's a trigger bill for when the rescheduling occurs federally. Many in the cannabis industry celebrated the recent rescheduling that was announced, and I spoke to various shop owners who are glad to see that happen and preferred to deal with whatever regulation would come out of that rescheduling. There were several testifiers to this also during the Summer Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee. And apologies to the senator from Minnehaha, but that's still what it's called. What will rescheduling do? It will open up opportunities for research into all types of medical issues and what the effects of cannabis would be on them. I expect to quickly see studies showing that medical cannabis works on all kinds of things that we haven't thought of, as well as all kinds of new products to be created. It is estimated this may take up to 3 years, and this bill changes absolutely nothing of the status quo until then. Once the federal changes are in effect, all of the cannabis program arrangements that we have set up will be obsolete. This bill would simply clean up the language in our code to take out the framework we no longer need. So, some issues that I've heard. 1, will this restrict access for those with a medical cannabis card? No. I am certain that once the rescheduling takes effect, there will be more access, because now others can be prescribed cannabis through the regular doctors, not just the ones that have the cannabis licensure now. 2, if we pass this, will it mean that we have no medical cannabis program until the rescheduling? No. As I explained before, this is a trigger bill. So there will be absolutely no changes until the rescheduling takes effect. 3, are you doing this just because you don't like marijuana? No. I am only against the abuse of any kind of drug, but that has nothing to do with the bill before you. I actually have a great appreciation for the plants that God has made and the potential uses of them. I use hemp products for all kinds of things, as you've heard in previous testimony, and I'm positive that opening this up to research will produce treatments of various kinds. I'm not against the medical use of cannabis. Thank you for your time. I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponent testimony? Have any proponent testimony in the room? Do we have any online? Okay, so we have no proponent online. Do we have any opponent testimony? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cassie Deffenbaugh. I'm a division director in the Department of Health, overseeing licensure and accreditation. And for the purposes of today's bill, I oversee the Office of Medical Cannabis within my division. I respectfully come before you today requesting your no vote on Senate Bill 181. There are some concerns, although I do appreciate the efficiency that this bill is trying to create. There are some concerns with repealing the entire medical cannabis chapter, which is 3420G. As you look at the bill, it will completely remove the legal framework that is in place for the medical cannabis program. Just because the drug would be rescheduled to Schedule 3 does not mean that that product will immediately be available to patients. For example, if you think of bulk coating powder, that is not just automatically approved by the FDA. There has to be an FDA approval process after that for those products, specifically after the rescheduling process. So although it would be rescheduled to Schedule 3, it does not necessarily just create access in pharmacies immediately. It would take time for that process to be implemented and in place. There has to be transition planning. Like the good senator indicated, repealing the entire medical cannabis chapter would move all of the cannabis to the controlled substance laws, which is 3420B. That would make any manufacturing, distribution, dispensaries illegal. It would make the access that the patients currently have as certified patients illegal. They would no longer, they're certified, they're not prescribed, so they would no longer have access. They would be illegal users of cannabis, even though they've been previously approved. All of the debilitating conditions would no longer be of relevance. It also makes it so that any product that we currently test before it is sold to consumers would no longer have a regulatory framework in place for that. So the flower itself, the cannabis flower, would not be available in pharmacies. there's a lot that has to be done before you can consider this. And I understand the rescheduling, and this is what this trigger bill is for. But there's a lot of things that will happen after that have to take place before we can repeal the entire cannabis chapter that provides a safe cannabis program. And that there is still a legal framework that would need to exist for that before we can repeal the entire chapter. There are over 18,000 patients in South Dakota that would be impacted by this. They will have to go to unsafe, unregulated product, which creates patients and safety risks that we would be very concerned about. There's 113 establishments in South Dakota, manufacturing, dispensaries, and cultivation that would no longer have a legal framework. You have to be able to get this product from somewhere, and the pharmacies aren't going to be making it. So we really have to be thoughtful in this approach that we are taking, and it's not just going to be right away or even 3 months after the fact that this is going to be an established program. We have to be cautious on how we do this and make sure that we are still safe in providing product to patients. So in addition to that, the establishments, there's going to be job losses if this is just a program that is put in place without thought. And also, you're going to see economic issues. It will become, again, illegal and put under the controlled substance laws instead of the medical cannabis framework. And we have some serious concerns about that. And we still feel that there needs to be some sort of regulation in place, at least for gap planning and transition planning as we look at this bill. So in closing, I would request your no vote on Senate Bill 181, and I stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any other opponent testimony?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cash Anderson, registered lobbyist for the Cannabis Industry Association of South Dakota. We rise in opposition of this, and I want to say just kind of me too on everything the Department of Health said. It was said a lot better than I could say it. A few of our concerns is, you're repealing a chapter or a section of code really put into place by the will of the voters. Over 70% voted for this. We have the infrastructure in place currently between really the stakeholders involved with this, from the Department of Health to the dispensaries, et cetera. And we also have the infrastructure in place in code to make sure that this is run efficiently and, most importantly, safely. This is a patient-focused program. And I think while this may be well-intended, I think the unintended consequences are, obviously pushing away or getting away from everything we have in place as it relates to testing and distribution and safety with the product. And also the concern is there's a lot of uncertainty with the rescheduling and what that looks like, what rulemaking processes go into that, and ultimately what will come out on the other side. I don't want us to put the cart before the horse here. Let's see what happens, figure it out at that time once we have all the information, because what I think no one wants to see is 18,000 patients that get cut off and we don't have a plan in place due to a trigger law. So would ask for your no vote on this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other opponent testimony? Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Mitch Richter. I represent Genesis Farms on this particular issue. Mr. Anderson took my opening line of cart before the horse, because this is the proverbial cart before the horse on this particular issue. We all know how fast the federal government moves or how slow the federal government moves. This could be 4, 5, 6 years down the road before this ever happens. And there's a lot of things that could happen at the state level or at the federal level before that happens. So it undermines states' rights to reflect the preferences and needs of our own citizens. Repealing this program would abruptly remove access for patients who rely on it for pain management, seizure disorders, PTSDs, cancer symptoms, and other conditions, even if federal law changes. Automatic repeal based on federal administrative action rather than clinical evidence of efficacy for each condition is nonsensical from a medical regulatory standpoint. Senate Bill 181 would abolish the South Dakota medical cannabis program solely because of a federal rescheduling decision. Even though rescheduling does not equate to FDA approval, clinical efficacy, or all other uses, insurer support, or patient safety. This undermines state autonomy, removes legal access for patients, disrupts the regulatory industry, and substitutes federal administrative action for deliberate state policymaking. I think the Department of Health did an excellent job of laying out all of the reasons that this is a bad idea this year. Let's wait and see what the federal government does and come back and revisit this in 3 or 4 years down the road when the feds have done something that is meaningful at this point. So we'd urge a no vote on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponent testimony? Any other opponent testimony in the room? I know we have quite a few online. We have about 5 minutes left. If I go right down the line, we have Sherry Cosell. Oh, that's written testimony, sorry. Emmett Reichstoffler. Emmett, are you online?
Senator, I will skip today and just say me too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emmett. Appreciate that. Me? Jason?
Yes, I'll be very brief.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Thank you for your time, committee members and chair. My name is Jason Karimi. I'm a medical cannabis patient and publisher of Weed Press, a policy analysis publication focused on statutory interpretation and federal-state interaction. For years, I've warned activists that lawmakers would eventually point to federal law as justification to repeal or restrict state cannabis programs. I said, if you build a state system without addressing federal law directly, federal law will be used against you. That moment is now here. But what's missing from today's discussion is this. Federal law is not a single blunt prohibition. It contains mechanisms and exemptions. State medical cannabis programs are lawful exemptions to federal law, and Congress has anticipated such a scenario and has already created a remedy, which is a submission of a federal waiver request. I'm glad the committee today is pursuing a federal waiver request bill in this hearing for soft drinks, but here's the statute for medical cannabis federal waivers. 21 U.S.C. Section 822D provides an exemption process under the Controlled Substances Act. Federal law anticipates regulated handling of controlled substances under lawful authorization. This is the process. HB 1056, the third item on this hearing agenda, acknowledges federal waiver concepts in other regulatory contexts. That is important because if we recognize that federal waivers exist, then we must also recognize that state cannabis policy does not exist in a vacuum. So our choice is not simply today ignore federal law or repeal state law. There is a third option: pursue lawful exemption mechanisms, federal alignment, and regulatory clarity instead of retreat. Ignoring federal structure creates vulnerability. Engaging the exemption process creates durability. If this body believes federal law is an obstacle, then use the tools within federal law to address it, and don't abandon patients because of federal complexity. Navigate it. Since ignorance of federal law led to this latest repeal attempt, which is not the first, by lawmakers should create a task force to investigate these legal complexities to avoid litigation and confusion if this latest attempt to repeal patient access succeeds. Patients deserve stability, not policy whiplash. Furthermore, the final point, if this rescheduling goes through, Schedule 1 will be null and void in South Dakota, as South Dakota's State Controlled Substance Acts is a derivative and originates from and follows the lead of federal scheduling. The lawmakers' task force should focus on legislation to protect state sovereignty and fix state Schedule 1 before those marijuana laws are no longer enforceable in South Dakota once the federal government removes Schedule 1. Defense attorneys will be advised to review my motion to dismiss marijuana charges for failure to follow Schedule 1 removal at the federal level. I've made that available for free at my policy blog, weedpress.org. Thank you for your due diligence on this topic.
Thank you. We have about a minute left if anybody else wants to come up and do a Me Too. I know we got a lot of people in line in the room that signed up as opponents, but I appreciate the brevity of the testimony. Is there any other opponents that want to come forward? Okay, thank you. Then I would offer time for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator John Carley, District 29. Just follow up a bit on SB 181. So first, I'll start out by saying these concepts and discussions came from our summer meetings. We had a medical marijuana oversight committee. We had a lot of discussions about this rescheduling because this was in the news pretty extensively in the past few months. And so a lot of these concepts and people that we heard from were from all over the country, no problem. Secondly, there is no reduction of patient access. In fact, part of the idea of this rescheduling is to actually open it up wider. And, there are some people who are against it. In fact, a number in Congress wrote against it for that very reason, that it actually opens it wider. So there's certainly no reduction of patient access. Also, what I find a bit ironic with the opponents is they celebrated this news. I mean, probably all of you saw in the news as well that it was celebration of moving it to Schedule 3. And hey, we're going to have better access, we're going to have better rules, and now it puts it in truly medical use. That's what Schedule 3 means. And so, there are hundreds of articles, reports, people in the state excited about that. So it's a little interesting to feign opposition now when here it is. We're saying, hey, let's take this very support that they advocated for. 4, Department of Health. They mentioned, this is going to reduce time for access to these medicines and so forth. Well, what they failed to mention, there's already 5 FDA-approved medications already that you can get. And those are approved by the FDA. You can go to pharmacies. I think they mentioned that as well. You can't go to pharmacies. You can actually go get those now. Those are FDA-approved medications that use anything from cannabis to synthetic compounds in those. Additionally, here's what's going to happen. We have some amount of time. Some have said 2 years. I think we heard an opponent say up to 6 years. What do you think is going to happen during that time? There's going to be a lot of innovation. Because now that it's been placed into this medical Schedule 3 category, there's going to be all kinds of research and studies, even ahead of time, as to medications and things that can be treated with this. And frankly, from an entrepreneurial perspective, someone mentioned less jobs. I think it's going to create more because there's going to be all kinds of entrepreneurs going, wow, it's moving to Schedule 3. Let's start coming up with additional products and ideas that fall into that category of Schedule 3 for medical use. So you're going to actually just watch. You'll see all kinds of things come and even more FDA-approved medications eventually released. Someone mentioned there's no planning time. There's actually a lot of planning time. There's an entire gap. The first gap is between now and when this actually takes place. And the Department of Justice had said it's going to could be 1 to 2 years or maybe even 3 years. But even beyond that, when that gap is closed, this bill, as you saw, specifies in it, there's a 3-month period where the Attorney General will notify the state, hey, we're planning on following the federal guidelines in the Schedule 3 reclassification. So there's even another gap even after that's announced. So there's plenty of time. There's nothing abrupt about this. Again, we're doing this ahead of time to give people notice. That gives a lot of time for notice and planning and purposes there. It removes nothing legal. It actually makes it more legal under a new scheduling. And then finally, I'll just say this is a fairly clean and simple bill. You see, it's only 2 paragraphs, and that's not to complicate it. That's not to put any special regulations on it, but instead to say, hey, let's clean up our code once this schedule ends up taking place. So I'd ask for your due support and stand by for questions.
Okay, thank you. I will close public testimony and open it up to committee questions.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Davis.
for the Department of Health. Ms. Steffenbach, proponents keep reiterating that this is so simple. And based on your testimony, I just am a little confused about timelines and how would this actually play out if the rescheduling happened? I mean, I'm concerned about gaps in care, I guess.
Appreciate the question. Cassie Deffenbaugh, Division Director in the Department of Health. That is correct. And I would indicate that with the rescheduling of cannabis to Schedule 3, it does move cannabis to Schedule 3, but there are still processes in place after the fact that Flower, again, is not going to be allowed in a pharmacy. That is still not going to be available, which is currently available for patients currently. There are other products that still would require FDA approval before it can be sold in a pharmacy. And there are drugs, medications that are cannabis derived that are approved by the FDA and available via prescription. That does not require a patient medical cannabis certification. Providers can prescribe that. It is a Schedule 4, I believe. So that is a separate situation. All of the products currently in dispensaries are not currently available in a pharmacy. There has to be a process in place to close those gaps between the scheduling of cannabis to Schedule 3 to everything else that has to happen after that. And certainly these are things that we are thinking of and monitoring and trying to figure out what the medical cannabis model in South Dakota does look like, or cannabis in general. But there will be a gap, and patients will not just immediately have access to the products that they currently have access to in a pharmacy. There is a significant process that has to occur before we can just remove access to products and safe products, which is the primary concern with this. The products they have access to are very regulated right now. They're all tested. Every single product before it goes to be sold to a patient is tested. We regulate the establishments. We regulate cultivators and manufacturers, which are probably still going to have to be producing this product. We regulate the dispensaries, and there are regulatory frameworks in place to make sure that there are not synthetics in the cannabis, that there are not other issues or concerns with the product, and that it is safe for patients. And the concern is that there is not a transition timeframe from scheduling to those products being available, and there will be a gap, and every single one of those patients, if the law is not looked at closely, will be illegal because they are certified. They are not prescribed cannabis right now. They are certified. And moving those laws to the cannabis controlled substance laws puts it under controlled substances, which have to be prescribed. So they would all be illegal if there is not consideration of the law for those patients. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll close questioning and move to committee action and/or discussion. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make the motion to move Senate Bill 181 to the 41st day.
Senator Reed moves to move Senate Bill 181 to the 41st day, seconded by Senator Davis. Any comments on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the last question, the answer to the last question really hit the nail on the head, that, this will move it to a prescribed product. And there's going to be some time lag in between that. And until we fully understand all of that, this is way ahead of what we need to do. We need to make sure that this product is still available. And then we have to work towards what it means when it does change schedule. So that's why I would ask for your support in sending this to the 41st day.
Thank you. Any other comments on the question? I'll just make one quick one. I spent almost 2 decades in the pharmaceutical wholesale industry, and I see the gaps as huge. Again, some of the natural product I just can't imagine that moving through a wholesaler, and pharmacies have to get their product from a wholesaler. So I think there's a lot more questions than answers at this point, but I think moving to Schedule 3 is probably a good move, to get the medical community more involved in the process, but I guess I would support the motion. There's no other comments. Senator Perry.
Just a quick comment, that is, I appreciate Senator Carley and his information. Anytime we have any one of these bills that come to us, like SB 181, there's the pros and the cons, and it was good to hear the arguments for this and the reasons for it. And it also is interesting when the opponents mention that we're putting the cart in front of the horse. It's one of those things that's really hard to judge, but we appreciate your work on this.
Thank you. With that, Senator Reed moves that we move Senate Bill 181 to the 41st day, seconded by Senator Davis. I ask the Secretary to call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay.
Senator
Aye.
Aye.
Reed. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
Wait.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, we have 7 yeas.
Okay, thank you. Senate Bill 181 will move to the 41st day. Thank you. So we will move on to the next bill at hand, Senate Bill 194. Limit the potency of cannabis products sold at medical cannabis dispensaries. Do we have any proponent testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator John Carley, District 29. I'm going to just bring up a little screen here for us to go through. And I'll make sure we're making this work here. There we go. Thank you, sir. All right. Senate Bill 194. It's a bill to set a THC cap on cannabis products. What does this mean? This means that we will be setting a cap for individual products to only be able to have a top level percent of THC. THC is the mind-altering substance in cannabis products. Why is this needed? There are unfortunately a growing number of consequences resulting from ever-growing increases in THC in products that are easily available in South Dakota. There's a term called potency inflation. Can you see that okay on your screen over there, Mr. Secretary? Staff or Secretary? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So this idea of potency inflation, this is where in the 80s, the average THC content in flower was between 1% to 4%. Today, legal flower often averages 20 to 35%, and concentrates can exceed 90%. These products are not intended for medical purposes, but rather just for the mind-altering properties often. There have been deaths in South Dakota from this. Slide 3 here, we're looking at the NIH. NIH is National Institutes of Health. They stated there is absolutely no research that indicates this level of THC is beneficial for any medical condition. And a quote from their study, the marijuana of old used to be classified as a hallucinogen and was thought to not cause addiction because there was no identified withdrawal syndrome. This has changed, and with the increased potency of THC, there is a definite recognized withdrawal symptom, which includes increased anger, irritability, depression, restlessness, headache, loss of appetite, insomnia, and severe cravings for marijuana. Additionally, there's been large-scale studies of high THC caps. For example, this in Science Daily and another NIH study said there have been large-scale studies and reviews that have specifically examined whether high levels of THC are associated with more harm compared to lower THC products. For example, one was an overview of nearly 100 studies that concluded that high THC cannabis products are linked to unfavorable mental health outcomes, especially risk of psychosis and addiction. So let's look at what is going on here with these concentrations. So marijuana is saying that term is just a broad term, or even THC for that matter. It's like a vehicle saying, well, a car, a boat, a plane, a trike, a skateboard, a rocket. But really, ultimately, every plant is different, and you have to look at the concentrations of these. So here's an example. 50 Woodstock joints that many of us have heard from the past are equivalent to 1 marijuana dab. That's a high concentrated THC product you're looking at there, that kind of concentrate all those joints into one particular product. All right, a study mapping the potency in medical and recreational programs in the U.S. found that cannabis demonstrated efficacy in neuropathic pain with low THC concentrations, between 5 to 10%, in contrast to potent cannabis, greater than that 15%. So again, studies done specifically related to the percentages. And you can see this is done by PLOS, mapping cannabis potency in medical and recreational programs in the United States. A lot of studies have been done on this. The balance of THC with other cannabinoids, especially CBD, also affects outcomes. We heard the term CBD. That's can be another component in there, and that may change the neurological response. However, high THC alone has been linked to stronger psychoactive effects that increase risk potential. Also, the flowers that are grown with the higher THC concentrations are not capable of producing high CBD concentrations. The following are some examples. We hear sometimes it's just the plant. Well, these are examples of concentrated products that concentrate that THC. So we see butter infused THC, we see a 80% THC cookie in the bottom left-hand corner there. We see green crack wax, hash oil capsules, butter shatter, butane hash, and we even see one called earwax, which is a high concentration of THC. Those usually are in the 80 to 99% concentration levels. There's a significant and growing body of scientific evidence linking higher THC potency to increased health and safety risks. Researchers have identified a, quote, dose response relationship, meaning that as the concentration of THC increases, the likelihood and severity of certain adverse effects also tend to rise. Some of these effects are mental health and psychosis, addiction and dependency, physical and cognitive risks, and obviously driving and safety under the influence. So where did these cap numbers come from? That's a question that's sometimes asked. So if we take a look at some of these percentages, a 5 to 10% THC cap, that's actually wanted by a number of groups. A lot of groups out there who may be against cannabis products, they want the 5 to 10% caps. We did see a lot of the studies say those are the most effective actually for the efficacy as well. So it's kind of an interesting component. So that's been where that is. 90 to 99% is what we're kind of talking about, these very high level THC concentrations you saw examples of. Well, those are the maximum levels. Those additionally have many concerns with the safety of those products with that level of concentration. And then finally, it's not aligned with other medicines. Most of our other medicines have percentages, have values that are calculated and dosed in very specific limited doses to provide the benefit instead of going to 99%. So where we landed here is in just about in the middle at the 30% THC. Now, where'd that come from? How'd we determine that? Well, first of all, it's aligned with other states. So there are states that have looked at these products and putting caps on those. So as an example here, Connecticut and Vermont have both put those caps at 30%. Ultimately, it gives a higher level than the studies have recommended. The studies have recommended somewhere in that 10 to 15% tends to be the sweet spot of efficacy as measured by studies. However, my feeling was instead of us going lower than that, we'd actually create a buffer above that to give some kind of additional capacity beyond what the studies have said. And I didn't want our state to be the state with the lowest. I think it makes sense to align with where other states have studied this as well and have set those caps. That way we're not an outlier, but instead we're matched up with other states that have put this in place. Just like these cap determinations, you've probably seen in the bill, there's other caps on the tinctures and other products, and those form of products follow the same patterns that you've seen outlined in this capacity with other states as well. So let's look at our summary of potency limit. This is the things we talked about. 1, patient safety and predictability is a reason for this. 2, it protects vulnerable populations. 3, it reduces the risk of misuse and diversion. 4, it lowers the risk of dependence and tolerance. 5, there's better research and clinical standards. 6, it's consistent with other medicine standards. And 7, there's public and provider confidence that comes with these caps. In conclusion, this shouldn't be a difficult vote. When voters voted for medical cannabis, they were not envisioning what we have today. This will take some abuse off the streets and get it back to where it actually will be effectual. Thank you. I stand by for questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other proponent testimony? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jenna Severin, South Dakota Police Chiefs Association. Law enforcement agencies are facing significant challenges in keeping pace with the rapid evolution of marijuana and hemp-derived products, often driven by shifting legal definitions, new psychoactive components, and product innovation. The proliferation of these products has created a complex regulatory landscape where law enforcement is faced to distinguish what is legal and illegal, often without adequate tools or standardized testing methods. Any legislation which would assist in the regulation of these products on the front end is one that we historically get up and support. And so we would ask for your favorable consideration on Senate Bill 194 today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other proponent testimony? Any other proponent testimony in the room? I don't see that we have any online. We have one. Yes, Jason again. Yeah, so, okay, with that, we'll move to opponent testimony. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. My name is Tyler Caney. I hold a degree in biomedical science and chemistry, and I'm a business owner and operator with a medical cannabis manufacturing license in Rapid City. I'm also a qualified patient for chronic pain, and I have a severe opioid allergy that prevents me from using traditional prescription drugs for pain management. I'm here today to oppose SB 194. First of all, I'd like to start with saying that Senator Carly mentioned other states with potency caps. I would like to first point out that those are recreational markets and they have much higher purchase limits than we currently have in our medical market here. THC potency caps prevent a barrier to effective care for our medical patients, and here's why. Our patients are not a uniform bunch. They have a variety of ailments that require varying levels of care. They manage chronic pain, cancer, and its symptoms, PTSD, MS, epilepsy, and other severe conditions that require the use of our medicinal products. Placing an arbitrary cap on THC assumes that all patients respond to the medication equally, which is inconsistent with medical reality and established principles of individualized care. Higher potency does not always equal a higher dose. Patients are able to learn their effective dose and administer dosage per their own needs in conjunction with their medical practitioner. All products at dispensaries are required to have sufficient packaging and labeling before being transferred to a patient for safety purposes. It is important to distinguish between concentration, dosage, and allotment. In Codified Law 3420G, the first definition is the allowable amount of cannabis. A sick and dying medical marijuana patient in South Dakota can only purchase 1/5 of the marijuana that you can buy in a 2-week period, compared to Minnesota, Colorado, and 21 other states that have recreational marijuana and established medical programs. Medical marijuana patients in South Dakota can't even get 1/5 of the care as an adult over the age of 21 can get in any other state. From a manufacturing perspective, this would force manufacturers to dilute medical marijuana to meet these proposed standards. And we just heard from the Department of Health as well that they don't want us to use adulterants or any other things in our products, synthetics, for example. So what are we supposed to dilute our products with if they're over these potency thresholds in order to serve our patients effectively and safely? Again, people will also just ingest more product if needed. Instead of eating one 50 milligram gummy, they'll have to eat 10 5 milligram gummies. Again, dosage and concentration are not the same thing, and patients will dose themselves appropriately regardless of what the product concentration is. Finally, I know there have been arguments regarding other medications, and drug companies do manufacture drugs in varying concentrations. For example, OxyContin is available in 2 to 3 milligrams a pill and 80 milligrams a pill. And that dosage is decided between the practitioner and the patient who is needing the care. So the provider has the discretion to dose accordingly to these needs. And there is already a cap set in 3420G based on the allotment that patients have. So why are we regulating the potency and the concentration of products when there's already a cap of how much they can consume in a given time period. So, in summary, we believe that all of these points show that SB 194 would create negative issues and barriers for patients and operators alike due to a misunderstanding of the plant itself, the science involved, and the specific needs of our patients and operators, and the supportive constituents of South Dakota who voted for this program to exist. So I thank you for your time. I'm open to questions, and I implore you to please vote no on SB 194.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponent testimony in the room? Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alan Welsh. I served with the South Dakota Highway Patrol for decades and retired in 2016 as district commander. Law enforcement and public safety have been my life's work. Today, I own a licensed medical cannabis business in South Dakota. I was always opposed to cannabis simply because it was against the law. I always followed the law. I enforced the law, trained troopers, made traffic stops, responded to calls when lives were on the line. So when I talk about public safety, this comes from experience. South Dakota already has regulated medical cannabis. 70% of South Dakota voted for it. It's tracked from seed to sale, tested, and there's never been an issue involving medical cannabis in South Dakota since its inception. SB 194 doesn't solve a problem, it creates new ones. Every year in this country, thousands of people die from alcohol poisoning. By contrast, there's never been a recorded fatal overdose from medical cannabis. SB 194 pushes activity back toward the illicit market, primarily smoke shops selling cannabis, where there is no testing, no tracking, and no oversight. It will cause patients to cross state lines, costing South Dakota revenue and causing patients to commit a federal offense. From a community standpoint, this bill punishes patients who followed the law and business owners who operated in good faith. And from a public safety standpoint, it moves us backwards, not forward. This isn't about being pro or anti-cannabis. It's about good law, real safety, and keeping promises to South Dakota voters and patients. I respectfully ask you to kill SB 194 and allow the existing system to continue working. And I have met with Attorney Jackley, chiefs of police, and sheriffs, and they all agree that the smoke shops are selling cannabis illegally, which is where the primary problems are coming from. Anything you hear, there's not been any issues with medical cannabis. Law enforcement problems are not coming from the medical industry. And with that, thanks for your time and your service.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your service. Do we have any other opponent testimony? Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kenny Sharp, and I was born and raised in South Dakota. I'm asking you to vote no on SB 194. I've had several life experiences that would qualify me for medical marijuana. 2002, I was in a hunting accident where I was life flighted from Newell to Rapid City. I got to spend 2 months for my home at the hospital. In 2013, I suffered a severe stroke. It affected my speech, my balance, and my coordination. It took me over a week to be able to say my first words. Shortly after release from the hospital, I tripped, breaking my foot and ankle, which required several plates and screws. I was prescribed 10 milligrams of hydrocodone 4 times a day until I found medical marijuana. High potency marijuana helped me get off my opiates. Even it helped me quit drinking. Medical marijuana saved my life. Please vote no on SB 194.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other opponent testimony? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Liz Tiger. I'm a lifelong resident of Spearfish, former member of the Medical Cannabis Oversight Committee, and I'm here representing myself today as a card-holding medical cannabis patient in opposition to Senate Bill 194. I live with several chronic illnesses, including systemic sclerosis, stage 5 endometriosis, Raynaud's phenomenon, and hypermobility spectrum disorder. I was first diagnosed with endometriosis at the age of 14, and I have lived with chronic and often debilitating pain for 30 years. Like many patients with long-term pain, I was first prescribed narcotics to treat it. I was 15. Roughly 6 years ago, South Dakotans approved initiated Measure 26. And since, excuse me, and since the medical cannabis program began, I have been able to manage my pain effectively without relying on narcotics. That has included recovery from 4 surgeries in a single year. For me, this program has not been theoretical. It's been practical and an effective part of my medical care. Through ongoing conversations with my physicians, I've developed a pain management regimen that uses different forms and strengths of cannabis depending on what I'm experiencing. When my hands swell and become inflamed, I use a topical cream. During post-surgical recovery or periods of severe pain, I rely on higher dose capsules or tinctures. The reason this works is that the program allows patients to adjust both the delivery method and the potency to match the medical need in the moment. Senate Bill 194 concerns me because pain and chronic illness are not one size fits all. A potency cap does not reduce the need for relief. It often means patients like myself have to consume more product to achieve the same effect or lose access to formulations that currently work for us. Decisions about strength and dosage are best made between a patient and their physicians, not universally set in statute. As both a patient and someone who spent years working to bring therapeutic cannabis access to South Dakota, it's difficult to understand why patients have to continue to return here year after year to defend a program that was approved by an overwhelming majority of voters. Patients are not asking for special treatment. We're asking for stability and the ability to continue managing our health in a way that works. For these reasons, I respectfully ask this committee to oppose Senate Bill 194 and send it to the 41st day. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponent testimony in the room? Mr. Richter, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mitch Richter, I represent Genesis Farms on this THC cap bill. Medical cannabis is not a recreational product. Medical dosing must be individualized, not legalized. THC products reduce harm for many patients. THC caps can increase harm by forcing patients to consume more products to achieve the relief that they're looking for. THC caps are not evidence-based medicine. The caps are blunt tools applied to nuanced medicine. THC caps blur the line between medical and recreational policy. Medical programs regulate patients, not general consumers. THC caps in a medical cannabis program replace individual medical judgment with arbitrary limits, raise costs, worsen patient outcomes, and push the sickest patients back toward the more dangerous pharmaceuticals without clear evidence of public health benefit. We'd urge you to kill this particular bill and move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We did hit our 12 minutes, but if there's anybody else that wants to testify in the room, and then we'll go to Jason online right after that. So thank you.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cash Anderson, registered lobbyist for the Cannabis Industry Association of South Dakota. Here to give a Me Too, and if I may, Mr. Chair, we have a number of people in the room who are here to rise in opposition of this, and if I could just have a show of hands instead of walking them up to the microphone. I know that's certainly different, but I would like to have them recognized.
Yeah, I would allow that. We have quite a list, and your name is on the register and will be listed. So if anybody wants to raise a Me Too.
Yep. So there's our
overwhelming, but
there's our Me Too's. So
thank you.
And I think our folks online are Me Too's as well, but wanted to get that out there and appreciate the time. Would ask for your no vote on this.
Thank you. And I think most of you signed up, so your name is in the register up here. So any other opponent in the room? Then we'll move to online. I think we have Jason. Are you online at this time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's largely a me too. Everyone actually covered about everything I was going to say, but I want to say what I had to say because I have a couple things. Mostly, stop picking on people. A one-size-fits-all approach takes nuance and options from the doctor-patient relationship. In response to the earlier presentation, cannabis medicine is an exemption to standard pharmaceuticals. Plant medicine is different biologically. It balances the body into homeostasis as opposed to pharmaceuticals. Plants, for example, can help both constipation and diarrhea, whereas to do the same mode of help for patients requires multiple pharmaceuticals. So pharmaceuticals need multiple harmful versions with severe side effects for pain patients that doctors who are supervising those individuals should be determining the dosage level. For lawmakers to ask for a one-size-fits-all blanket restriction on private doctor scientific determinations while claiming to represent patients might be why the public records show the MMOC board has very limited input from the public, as the board is seen by many patients to disingenuously misrepresent patient views, such as today's claim that we as patients somehow universally are in unity that rescheduling is good. Many in the patient community argue against rescheduling. They claim that it will be used to outlaw state businesses for a corporate takeover by big pharma profiteers. Thank you all for denying the prior nonsensical bill. This bill, like that, insults and dehumanizes patients and doctors' privacy and the will of the voters. And finally, the reason why the potency rose after the 1980s was government was doing what this bill attempts to do, increasing enforcement against cannabis. This drove the plant to the underground and was documented in the 1992 book, The Economics of Prohibition, which logically deduces, written by Mark Thornton, that the black markets increase potency of drugs to make them easier to smuggle. Gallons of beer is harder to smuggle than bottles of moonshine. So what would happen if you pass this bill? You would return power to the unregulated black market, while the government would take away their power to effectively regulate products that patients demand. Let doctors and patients decide their own dosing. Government must be cautious trying to practice medicine and overstep. There's already safeguards in place. Doctors supervise the dosing. No reports have been made of patients abusing South Dakota's medical cannabis program. This bill is an insult to patients. Anyone supporting this bill cannot claim to speak on the many various perspectives and concerns patients have. And it's no wonder patients do not feel safe publicly speaking to the MMOC board when this is the way patients get treated and dehumanized publicly. This bill is a shameful exercise in government overreach. It disrespects
Excuse me, sir.
voters.
Excuse me, sir. We do not criticize other people's opinions in any committee in this state. Keep your statements factual and not criticize other people, please. Thank you.
Yes, these are our grandparents. These are our families. These are our loved ones. Stop picking on everyone. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I guess with that, since everybody's raised their hands, seeing no other opponent testimony in the room, thank you. Then we'll offer time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Carly, District 29. Just going to bring up my screen again. Okay, just to recap on some of the things we heard, I'll first start on this bill that the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee this summer was open to the public. We had 3 separate hearings. We had patients able to come at all 3 of those. So we did have dozens of patients that came to that. So I didn't see any of that fear. I saw people coming and in a very polite manner testifying in their support of various degrees of the medical marijuana program. Additionally, I'll mention that this particular topic of THC caps, while it was not unanimous, there was a majority that did vote to consider this as a bill coming forward this year from the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee. We heard a comment about the black market. Hey, if we limit the caps on these, there'll be a black market. Well, I'll just point out that that's a red herring. There's a black market for everything. There's a black market for drugs. There's a black market for guns. There's a black market for watches. You can have access to those. Those markets are already there, will continue to be throughout history. Additionally, we heard from one of the opponents that you can consume more products if there's a cap. So I think we just heard a solution right there. If you wanted a higher percentage, get a few of the products. In fact, I would think that would be beneficial to the seller. They would actually be selling a few more products. I'll just point out that nothing in this bill stops any medical marijuana. We heard that several times, and I'm sad to hear that because I'm not here to stop that. In fact, I'm here to say we need to have it, except we need to have these caps on it. This is just a cap on a product that's gone to an extreme. Lastly, I'll just point out this is Matthew Schweitz, the Executive Director, South Dakota for Health, that I have on the screen for better marijuana laws. He was a key proponent of the sponsor of Initiated Measure 29, which was to bring recreational marijuana. I'll just play a short clip from him about the THC.
We don't allow videos.
Don't allow videos. Okay, then I'll read it.
Sorry.
Okay, he says, during that debate,
Says card holders and non-resident card holders may possess cannabis products if the equivalent cannabis weight plus the weight of the cannabis flower and trim does not exceed 3 ounces pursuant to SDCL 3420G1. In there, the table I referenced is one column, type of cannabis, amount equivalent to 1 ounce of cannabis, and then it lists those equivalencies. So there's hard purchase possession limits, and it does account for the various forms that it may come in.
Any other questions from the committee? Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it be all right if the Department of Health, I know that you weren't testifying, but I just have a quick question for you. Mr. Chair, it's always good to have the experts in the room, but on SB 194, we've heard a lot of different things, and we talked about regulation, safety, and all those things. But how does the Department of Health feel about this? Is this something that we should be pursuing, or are we good the way we are?
Mr. Chair, so the Department of Health has the job of regulating the manufacturing, cultivating, and dispensing of product. We don't necessarily, this is not going to impact that ability to do that, this particular bill. So for us, it will just change what we allow for a maximum of THC in products and labeling, but for us, it will not make an impact.
Secretary, could you introduce yourself just for the record? Thank you.
Melissa Megstad, Secretary of Health. I just was keeping it a secret, just a secret.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close questioning, move to committee action or discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Davis.
I'd like to move Senate Bill 194 to the 41st day.
Second.
Okay, Senator Davis moves Senate Bill 194 to the 41st day, seconded by Senator Smith. Any comments on your motion?
I don't see this bill as necessary. I thought we had some great testimony today from patients that need some flexibility in their ability to tailor products to what they need. I'm comforted by the administrative rules that we already have in place that have purchasing limits in safeguards, and I think the guardrails are there. I think they're working. I can't support this today, and I would ask the committee to just allow the rules and regulations we have in place to continue working.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Senator Smith.
Yeah, I think this is overreach again, and I don't think we should go there. I'm also friends with Matt, and I'd like it to be clear that he was talking about recreational marijuana. At the time, he's also quoted as saying on this bill that I gave no specificity as to what those limits might be, and I also would say that the limits in this bill are far too strict when talking about this. And so, please know that when we're bringing things up, we have to be talking apples to apples. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Senator Perry.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we do something like this, we talked about picking on people. We're not really picking on people when we have these type of programs. What we're trying to do is we're trying to establish the best possible program for constituents. I was an advocate for medical marijuana. I continue to be an advocate for medical marijuana. I will not be in a position where we're picking on people. What we will be is in a position to do the right thing. And I think that the senator with her motion to move this to the 41st day is the right thing. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Grove.
Listening to the former police officer's testimony and some of the others, I was just thinking that I think our eyes are on the wrong thing. I think we have an issue with smoke shops and places like that probably are causing a lot of issues. I appreciated the information that we haven't had any problems with our dispensaries in this area. I think that we should honor what they're doing. I think they're doing the best that they can. I think that we have to look at the other group that's probably really messing things up. And so I wish that this dealt with the smoke shops. I'm going to support the 41st day.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll just make one. I'm going to oppose the 41st day. I know where this is going to go. But again, coming from a background with pharmaceutical wholesale industry, every other pharmacy product has been tested and has limits. I mean, I think it's reasonable to look at limits. And I think that when the 70% of the people voted for it, most of them were voting for somebody having a joint once in a while. They weren't, really necessarily agreeing to 90% THC levels. So it's a soft opposition, but I think, with my background, I kind of have to take that position. So with that, I'll ask Secretary to call the roll. Senator Davis moved Senate Bill 194 to the 41st day, seconded by Senator Smith. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay.
Senator Grove.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
Reed. Aye. Smith. Hoyt.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Jensen.
No.
Mr. Chair, we have 6 yeas and 1 nay.
Okay, Senate Bill 194 moves to the 41st day. Thank you. I imagine we'll probably have some people leaving the room right now. We're going to take a brief recess, and I have to talk to our pro tem for a minute. So we'll be at recess for about 5 minutes.
Shush. Hold on. One second, I'll get you a treat. Chill.